Been thinking about this for a while, and does gearing actually suck in this game? Well, yeah, kinda does suck. And I would like to thank Xenos a little bit for his rants, because it did inspire me to think more on this topic. I thought for a very long time, because I hate identifying problems without having a solution. But let's point out the problems and some things you need to know before we come up with some solutions about gearing in Final Fantasy XIV. The first thing we need to talk about is how gearing works. So there's two sets of ways to get gear: tomes and Savage Raid tier. These are things that I think are very commonly known. Your Savage Raid tier is generally 16 weeks for a patch cycle, and then you have an additional 16 weeks before the next patch comes out that will bring in a raid tier, and this is also known as the catch-up patch. The other side of it is tomes, where you're capped at 450 tomes per week for this 32-week period. At this time, you can buy basically one piece of gear a week, with the exception of the first week. Well, I suppose you could with the accessories, with the cost of things from head, hands, and boots costing 495 tomes, chest and legs costing 825 tomes, with all of the accessories costing 375 tomes. In addition to this, you can get a weapon for 500 tomes if you have one of the weapon token things that allows you to buy them. So these are the two ways that you gear and get bis. Now, how the tome gear works is, generally speaking, for best in slot is 5 pieces that you need to get from tomes. On average, this is going to take you 7 weeks to get all of your tome pieces. And I say this because you're either going to need 2 pieces of armor and 3 accessories, or 3 pieces of armor and 2 accessories. This is 2,445 tomes and 2,565 tomes. Generally speaking, some classes are different, but that's basically 1 piece of armor and then either legs or chest and then 3 accessories, or vice versa with like 2 of the 495 pieces of armor, 1 825 piece of armor, and 2 accessories at 375 a piece. And we can round this up to about 3,000, because almost every single person, with the exception of super hardcore raiders, I will say, will be buying the weapon for 500 tomes. So add 500 to both those totals. We're going to average it out to about 3,000 tomes, which takes you 7 weeks to get. Now, if you multiply that by like 5, you basically get 4.6. That's about how many classes you can gear in a 32-week period, because you can't quite get to 35 weeks for all the tomes that you need. So you really only get to gear 4 classes if you're looking for bis, with this general statement. On the other hand, if you're using all tome gear, it costs 5,510 tomes, which takes you 12 weeks to get. This, on the other hand, allows you to gear like 2.6 jobs in a 32-week cycle, essentially the time that the raid tier is out. That is very poor, especially because of a game that talks about how much freedom that you can have and you can explore classes. I do understand if you are like a P range, for example, you can actually technically gear 3 classes with the exception of weapons when you gear bis, but for some classes like tanks that require different armor for different melds because they need different things, it can be annoying, especially if you want to play 2 different melees that aren't sharing class. For example, Samurai and Dragoon. On the raiding side, it is not so bad, but there are definitely improvements to be made. So how gearing works on the raiding side is you have 4 fights. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to go for this example. The first fight is only accessories. You only get accessories from this. Second fight, you get hands, boots, and feet. So basically your 495 tome equivalent, along with an accessory upgrade and a weapon upgrade that allows you to buy the weapon for 500 tomes. The third fight of every single tier drops legs, any of the armor from the previous fight with the exception of no accessories, a weapon upgrade, and a twine, which is an armor upgrade. And the last fight of the tier drops a weapon coffer, and a chest. In addition to this, you get a book for each clear of the week that allows you to trade in for any of the gear that comes from that fight. Currently, how it works out is you get 4 books for the first fight for an accessory, 4 for hands, boots, and feet for the second fight. Also, you can turn in 4 of the second book for an accessory upgrade. For the third fight, you can turn in 4 for a weapon upgrade or a armor upgrade. Then you can spend 8 to buy the legs. Lastly, you can spend 8 books to get a weapon of your choice or a chess piece of your choice from the last fight. Now, generally the book system is very good. However, if you roll awfully and you don't win any loot, it would take you a minimum of 16 weeks to get bis by our standard. In some cases, it could be worse, because if you need 4 tome pieces and then you also need raid pants, it will take you, what would that be, 24 clears of the third fight to buy all of your twine that you would need and get the pants. 24 weeks is almost half a year to get bis on a single class. Now, I understand it is unlikely that you won't win anything over the entire period of time that you are raiding, but we have to speak in guarantees. So let's just round it down to 16 because it's very unlikely, but 16 weeks to say you guarantee bis. That's also if you clear on week 1. Say you clear the 4th fight on week 5, which I think is pretty standard. You do 1 fight a week up until week 4. There's 5 fights a raid tier generally if you have a door boss. Week 5, you clear the raid tier. That means you won't even be bis by the time that you get to the next raid tier almost. Like, you're halfway through the next patch before you have bis. And that's kind of outrageous to me. Now, I think that's a very good understanding of how gearing works in Final Fantasy. Now, for my suggested changes, I think at the bare minimum, you have to do this. For the 3rd fight of every single tier, you need to make the twine and the weapon upgrade interchangeable. So that means if you win a weapon upgrade, you can change it for an armor upgrade. I think this is, at the very bare minimum, the thing that you need to do. You can maybe do that for the tome that you can buy your weapon with and the accessory upgrade, but I don't think that is as required because generally the 2nd fight of the tier is easier. The reason I say this for the 3rd fight in the tier is you need to gear way more armor than you do weapons. You generally only do 1 weapon, maybe 2 in an entire tier lifespan, but you might have to do 4 pieces of armor, and this is the only source of twine available during the raid tier, and that's absolutely ridiculous. Even if you make it a token and you drop the same token twice, and then you can change or trade in the token just like you would trade in books for either a twine or the weapon upgrade. And for anyone who's like, well, I don't, that doesn't feel as rewarding as getting it from a drop. You already buy your gear from a vendor at one source, so what's the matter of buying it from the other source? Like, you also, after you get the weapon upgrade, you also have to trade in your weapon that you just got to upgrade it. So, like, saying that it's more rewarding to get the drop other than trading in a token is just like a weird argument. Feel free to disagree, and if you disagree with any of my changes, that's fine. I don't really care. You can definitely tell me in the comments that I'm wrong or give your own suggestions, but that's what I think you need to do at the bare minimum. Now, personally, other things that I would do is I would actually drop the 4th boss from 8 books down to 6 books. That's generally what I would do, and I also would drop, so every piece of armor that you get from the previous fight is 4 books, so that would mean dropping the legs from 8 books down to 4 books. And then I think it's good. I think 4 books is fine for the raid tier, the 16 weeks that it's out. I do believe there should be a little bit of prestige around, you know, I cleared the tier and I'm bis during the raid tier, but after the next patch comes out, no one cares. Like, realistically, no one cares that you got bis. Like, realistically, I don't think anyone does. On people who are gatekeeping, that's just weird to me. Like, why would you do that? But, like, you can keep it at 4. I don't think the exchange should change on tier. That's fine. I think another thing you need to do is if you get a weapon coffer, you should be able to trade it for the augmented version of the gear that you got. So if you got a head coffer, you should be able to trade it for the raid gear that is max or bis level, like the best in slot at that time at that slot, or you should be able to trade it in for the augmented gear that is available because it's also best in slot. It's the same level. What makes the difference? I don't even care if you have to buy it, like the armor with tomes, and then trade in your head coffer with it. Basically, if you get a head coffer, you can treat it like a twine and or get the raid upgrade. It shouldn't be and or. It should be, you should be able to get a head coffer, treat it like a twine, trade it in with the armor piece that you buy for tomes, and then have an augmented set so it's best in slot. It should give you a 630. So allow the option to be able to trade it in and get a 630 item. Well, 630 this time, whatever best in slot is whenever you're watching this. I think that would be a very good idea. Even if it's a discounted tome price for that item, I think that would be a better solution, but I think it should be treated just like a twine. So like allow us to get augmented version. Now that's all I think the changes should be for during the tier. Like I think that's fine. I think everything else is fine. I don't think you should reduce prices of items for tomes or anything during the raid tier. But once we get to the catch-up cycle or the patch after the raid tier, I think you should do some changes. And maybe you want to do 50% off books, or just, I don't know, uncap the raid tier sooner. That would also be a solution. If you're not gonna, like, there's no reason that a raid tier should go for 32 weeks. Like, beside myself, especially when like ultimates are coming out and you like let people play jobs. No one cares about BIS. It doesn't matter. All it allows you to do is like one piece of content more efficiently, or if you're doing ultimates, allows you to actually do the content that you want to do. So like gatekeeping or restricting the availability of these things to one class is just weird. I understand I'm saying that a lot, but it's weird.
Well, side note, after the fact, if the raid tier unlocks with 6.38, like we're assuming, on April 4th, it'll be 224 days it takes for a raid tier to unlock. That is a little over 2/3 of a year for a raid tier unlock, just for your knowledge.
And then another thing I would do is I would change the tome cap on the next patch from 450 to 600. This allows you to gear like 2 additional jobs essentially during this time period. You could double it. I think the 150 is enough. It won't make people play so much more of the game where they'll be like, oh my god, I feel like I'm grinding tomes to like make sure I can get armor every single week. So I don't think it's too much. I do understand the argument of if you double the cap rather than half the pricing, you're forcing players to do like level 90 activities more and more. And I understand that burnout can happen, but like if you increase it by 150, you could reduce prices. I think you just need to do something with that tome cap. It could be either or. Pick your poison. But like I think the suggestions I made about the twine and the weapon upgrade at the very beginning is what you need to do at the bare minimum. The coffer exchange I would really like to see. I think that would be a very beneficial thing. And then the off patch cycle that's before the next raid tier, those changes aren't as important to me. They're just more like, I think it's a better improvement to the current system that we have. But you can definitely disagree with me. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Just I want to hear your thoughts, and maybe we'll like cover what some of your suggestions are in another video. But that's actually all I have for this video. I hope you found it helpful, and as always, I hope you have a great day.